Welcome to the Automation and Self-Service Podcast. I'm Sandra Carpenter, editor of Vending Times and Kiosk Marketplace. Today, I'm joined by Stephen King, CEO of BlueSky Robotics and Distinguished Professor of Innovation and Emerging Tech at UNC. Stephen's stepping into a new role as the host of the Automated Retail and Kiosk Innovations Summit. And Stephen has been part of our Automation and Retail and Kiosk Innovation Show steering committee for quite some time, and he's been helping lead the event's rebrand to ARKI, which is short for Automation, Retail, and Kiosk Innovation. So we'll be talking about what this evolution means for the industry, how ARKI is shaping up for its debut in Tampa this December, and what attendees can expect as the show moves forward under Stephen's leadership. So thank you so much for being with us.
Yeah, glad to be here. Thanks for hosting.
Of course. So you've been closely involved with this event for some time. And I'm curious to know, this year you're taking on an even bigger role in shaping its direction. So what excites you the most about where ARKI is heading?
Well, I enjoy the event always. I've always enjoyed coming to it and getting to know the people there. And what I think has kind of changed is it's changing with the industry. So technology is changing very quickly, and it's important that our gatherings and content also changes as well. So I think what I'm excited about is that as the industry is changing, so is this conference, and so is the content and the people who are invited.
Mm-hmm. So that's actually, it kind of speaks to like the larger rebrand, right? So the rebrand from the Self-Service Innovation Show to ARKI, which is Automated Retail and Kiosk Innovation, signals a broader kind of shift and vision for the show. What does that kind of represent for you in terms of like where the industry is heading?
Yeah, when we talk about creating good customer experiences, it's not limited to one particular device or one particular technology. As these technologies all grow, they all interconnect with each other. AI is making that so much easier, and so that's obviously going to be a part of our conversation. But new interfaces, new way of engaging with customers, all that stuff is interconnected. So to say it's just a kiosk conference, or it's just an ATM conference, or it's just one of these technologies we may use, I don't think that's actually reflective of what the people who are doing the work are actually doing. So this conference gives us a chance that we can do this in a way that allows people to explore and find new things they may not have seen. So they may have been focused on one particular piece of the industry or one particular technology, and then they get exposed to others and they get to ask questions and engage. So I think the future of this conference, kind of what we're doing in December, really gives us a chance to see where the industry is going and then see how we all fit into that.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting point, especially for this conference specifically, because one of the things that comes out of this conference is like, oh my gosh, we got to have the best conversations with folks we would have never kind of like out in the industry interacted with or intersected with, but it brings together folks from different fields. So like automated retail and kiosks might not necessarily like cross paths as organically as they do at this conference, but usually there's these really cool conversations that happen during the panels and during the Q&As that are kind of unique to this specific conference.
Yeah, and I think that's the reason I have continued to stay involved since the first year I came, was I met people that were doing things that I wasn't doing. I met people that I could learn from, and that was a really important piece to me as both a professor and as a CEO of a company, right? And so I think those relationships were really helpful and have led to business for my company. So, to be really honest, like it was a great opportunity for me to get to meet people and to hear from them, and actually not just like make customers, but also to learn and grow and really engage with people.
Yeah. So I actually do want to talk about BlueSky Robotics just a little bit. So BlueSky Robotics sits right at the intersection of automated retail and robotics. So how does that perspective influence your approach to curating those conversations and those partnerships at ARKI this year? And like, what have you experienced in the past? And I know you've already hit on this just a little bit.
Well, one thing that we talk about is automation. It's in the title. We think about automation traditionally in manufacturing, right? And conveyor systems and robots. But we also have back office automations, a lot around the data analytics and the AI that's coming, and that's really growing. But we've also got to think about we also have to think about automation when we talk about the customer experience. And so automated customer experience help us to scale. And so all these things go together. And so that's one of the things I'm loving about the evolution of this conference is we can bring all those things together. And so our company is really focused on automating and solving problems for people and making good experiences for the end user. So as we look at retail, it's not just the back office part. It's not just the automation. It's automating the retail experience. So can we give people a way to engage and get new goods, like retail, like physical goods? It doesn't have to just be digital. It doesn't have to just be food. We think about kind of automating food vending stuff, but it can be food. But it can also be something as great as women's shoes. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that so with this conference specifically, there's a lot of really cool like intersections about, especially like vending and automated retail. You typically think of food. And I know that we have folks from healthcare, from universities, from food service that are coming and speaking on behalf of like, how can we use this technology to, distribute not just food, but also like medication and, harm reduction supplies and things like that. So I mean, it really does kind of touch on a lot of different things.
Yeah, one of the things we like to think when we go through kind of a consulting process is what do the people need in this exact moment, in this exact space, right? So when you're in an airport, the pharmaceuticals might be what you need. You just need something for a headache, right? You also need, like Best Buy has theirs kiosk there at the airport because people want earbuds, right? And there's those kinds of things there. We work with a client who, I made the joke about women's shoes. She realized that at cruise ports, there's a great audience for women's shoes there. And so she has put them in cruise ports. And so I think we're looking at things that are really interesting, kind of new ways of thinking about automation and vending and kind of selling goods in a different experience than what we've traditionally said. We normally had to have a whole store and you had to have a person standing there and manning it. And I think that's something we've really been able to get away with because automation and technology has helped us to do that.
Absolutely. A big part of last year's show, and I'm sure a big part of this year's show too, and I'm certain something that you kind of come up against is the idea that like the human interaction in these transactions is being replaced. And I think that that's something I would love to get your insight on in terms of like, how do you think that this is going to play into the show and like the industry in general? I've had a few conversations with people that suggest that the human interaction is actually enhanced by the use of this technology, but I'm just curious to know where you stand.
Yeah. So I'll be really honest about this. When people talk about ROI and saving because of automation, they are mostly talking about labor savings. Okay. So we can't ignore that fact. There is a point where you're taking people away from a particular role and either putting them in another role or you're actually just not rehiring. And so essentially you're saving money on labor wise. So we can't ignore that fact. But the companies that are doing this really well, the brands that are succeeding in this are ones that are choosing to move those people to do better engagement with their end clients, with those customers to enhance that customer experience. So at the conference, I have a couple of examples that I'll be giving in the keynote, but I'm kind of like really focused on like, there's one particular one that I saw yesterday in person where I watched the robots move and do one thing, which enabled, they have people on the floor engaging with the customers to do something else. And so that's a great example that we'll be sharing at the conference of how you can increase the customer experience by automating and by putting in kiosk and by leveraging technology. But not every brand is doing that.
Yeah, it's something that's definitely going to be setting folks apart in the years to come, is how you use that to enhance rather than kind of take away from that customer experience. So I'm curious. So one of the things that people love about this show is a mix of innovation and real world insight, like what you've been discussing with even the example that you saw yesterday. What themes or technologies do you think will stand out most in this year's program in particular?
The themes that I expect to see the most in the conference will be, I know that every single session someone's going to mention the word AI, so I think that's something that's going to be said. And I think what we're going to try to do is focus those conversations of how do we do applied AI. It's AI that's not focused on, oh, it's just AI, but let's get specific in our terms. Let's get specific in our use cases. So I think you're going to see that. I think you're also going to see how do we optimize and make things better, faster for the back end for the people who are supporting this. So you're going to see different tools that make it easier for people, and you'll get to try those out. I think there'll be some that we'll see. And then I also think you're going to see a real focus on customer experience. Is that how do we leverage this with customer experience? And we're going to talk about good examples, and you're going to see bad examples, and you're going to get to talk to the people who are actually doing it, and really hear from them.
Yeah, I think that that's going to be really key, is like seeing a mix of both, the good and the bad and those pain points. Like you get to discuss those things at this conference. And because it is a summit, you get to have that kind of like intimate interaction with your colleagues and with people who are also leading the field. So I think that that's something, especially after last year, that I pulled that was a little bit more unique than a lot of the other shows that I've been to, is that you get to have that, and there's time built into the agenda as well to like have those conversations and to have kind of that those networking opportunities.
Exactly.
Yeah. So as the industry evolves, how do you see events like ARKI and this summit helping operators or brands or tech leaders like yourself stay connected and informed?
There's all different kind of conferences and shows out there. You have the big show where there's 20,000 people, and that has a specific purpose, and that's the exact opposite of what this is. This is really about bringing people together for conversations, and then you still do get to see technology and what it's doing and what the options are out there, but it's more about the executives discussing things together. I've learned this. I've seen that. Oh, that was a really bad idea. That didn't work well. We're frustrated working with this group. And so I think you're going to see those kind of conversations. And so I think that's the value of a conference like this. So that's what I look for, is those kind of places where I can engage with people and not just talk to say like vendors, but also talk to the people, the operators, and the ones who are like actually doing the work in the field and engaging with customers and seeing how they're doing it, so that I can then take that to my other customers.
Absolutely. And that's something that the steering committee and the folks who are working on the content of this conference have been super intentional about, is offering the perspective of those operators, of those end users, so that folks can come and see like what that, end use looks like, as opposed to just hearing from the vendors. So I think that there's a really cool interplay that goes on at this conference because of that. So I'm curious to know what attendees can expect in Tampa this December. So that's both in terms of just their experiences at the conference and the energy you're hoping to bring to the show as this year's co-host.
Well, I'm glad it's in Tampa. We'll go to Florida in December, so it'll be nice weather, hopefully. And I think we always have fun. I mean, I will say that like the one thing that I think that I saw last year was the group just kind of hangs out afterwards. There's the kind of meet the speakers dinner, and then afterwards everyone went out for drinks afterwards, and it kind of continued on. And so those are like great relationships and a lot of fun time that has. So outside of the conference, there's a lot of fun as well. And then I would also say that, one of the things I look forward to and think that we'll see is kind of the Q&A, the ability to engage and ask me a question, have me to ask questions for you, however you want to do that, so that you can engage right with those people who are doing the work and who are engaged on the ground. And so, it's like, if you're in an environment you feel comfortable asking questions, then that's a place you're going to learn. And so we're trying to create an environment where we're learning. And we're learning from lots of different perspectives. So just to give you a sense, like I have grad students right now who are looking for all the worst kiosk interfaces out there. Like that's literally a job of one of my grad students. Yeah. So that's one of those that I'm planning on bringing to the show, as well as great examples. Right. And but I think there's things we can learn in lots of different ways. And so hopefully it'll be a lot of fun and a lot of learning as well.
Absolutely. And I think that that's something that is that we all look forward to, is that balance, and it all just kind of blends together, because the conference itself is so interactive and conversational, and I really enjoy how the audience can kind of participate in the content as well. Thank you so much, Stephen, for your insights. This has been a really cool conversation. I'm really looking forward to ARKI this year, and I'm excited to hear how it goes. And thank you so much for tuning into this episode of the Automation and Self-Service Podcast. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe below for more of our content.